Well, SoFi holders, this is the moment of truth. SoFi's price has now officially pumped all the way back to the red zone following a series of massive announcements that we got regarding SoFi over the last few days. And I'm under the belief that what happens next as SoFi hits this red zone will determine if SoFi's price pumps all the way up to around $23 per share or if it falls all the way back down to $15 per share. So as you can clearly tell, there is a lot on the line right now, and you do not want to ignore it. So in today's video, I'm going to break everything down for you. First, we're going to go over exactly why it is that SoFi's price has been pumping for the last week. Then we're going to talk about what it means for SoFi to be back at the red zone and exactly what you need to be watching for. And then lastly, I'll break down what I'm doing in my own SoFi position as a result of SoFi being at the red zone following these announcements. So we have a good bit to get into today, and I don't want to keep you too long on a Monday, folks. So let's go ahead and let's jump straight on in. So when it comes to why SoFi is pumping, it really breaks down into four different catalysts. Now, I'm going to be honest, I did break these four catalysts down for you all in this video 4 days ago. So I'm not going to go in crazy detail about each one, but I will overview each one. So the first one are the Trump accounts. As many of you know, SoFi joined the federal Trump accounts savings rollout, putting it alongside major providers and driving new signups and long-term users. Now, if you don't know what the Trump accounts are basically tax-advantaged investment accounts for children under 18, which officially rolled out on July 4th, which is why this is a fresh catalyst. Eligible babies born between 2025 and 2028 receive a $1,000 government-seeded contribution. And then parents, guardians, or authorized individuals can contribute up to $5,000 annually, with funds invested in broad stock market index like the S&P 500. And so naturally, this has brought a lot more customers, signups, and users to SoFi because they did join this rollout alongside platforms like Robinhood. And so this has been a massive step in the right direction for the diversification of their customer base and customer acquisition as well, which is a great thing fundamentally for SoFi as a business. Now, at the same time that this rolled out, we also saw them roll out their small business loans. SoFi launched business loans up to $250,000, which can be funded in 24 hours with no fees. And so naturally, this has been a fresh revenue leg for the everything app that they're trying to become. And this has been a great step in the right direction to continue, as I mentioned before, to diversify their customer base and their customer acquisition as well. Now, the truth is that these small business loans aren't going to make them a whole bunch of money, but you have to consider the approach that they're taking. They want people to use SoFi for everything finance related. And this is something that was missing that they are now offering. And so just like the Trump accounts, this is another way for them to continue to intrinsically grow the value of SoFi as an app and as a business. Now, at the same time that we're seeing these two things happen fundamentally, we were also seeing institutions buying. And I'll go to number 3 in a second because that one will take me a bit longer to explain. But we are seeing institutions buying. I don't know if you guys saw this news or not, but we actually did see that Cathie Wood's ARK Invest has boosted their stake in SoFi by over $1 million. And they're not the only one. We have now seen a total of 6 institutions accumulating SoFi in the last 4 days as a result, I would assume, of all of these different rollouts that they have been doing. I think people understand the future that they're trying to build towards. I think they understand the steps that they're taking to try to get to that future, and they want to be on board. And that's the reason as to why you are seeing companies like, Cathie Wood's ARK Invest buy over 200,000 shares while all of this is happening. And in addition to all of that, in addition to the institutions buying, we are also seeing the fintech sector as a whole benefiting from a capital rotation from AI. If you've watched my last few videos, one thing we've talked about a lot over the last few days is the fact that we are objectively seeing people leaving the AI space and entering other spaces, just like the fintech space. And SoFi is one of the companies who has a similar risk versus reward risk versus reward opportunity like AI. And I think that's very appealing for some of these AI investors who are looking for a home with their investments. And so because of that, you're seeing companies just like SoFi, companies just like Robinhood rallying right now as some of the different AI plays are maybe starting to slow down a little bit. And so when you factor in the idea that people are rotating from AI, institutions are buying, and they're launching these things that fundamentally drive more value to their company, you're going to be in a position in which SoFi pumps over 5% over just the last couple of days. And so if you were wondering if this was just a random pump, it is not a random pump whatsoever, and I think it is extremely justified. Now, with that in mind, though, let's talk about what SoFi's price is doing as this pump is occurring. Because although it does feel good to see all these improvements and changes being made for SoFi, you can't ignore the fact that SoFi is now back at the red zone. Now, I know some of you are going to say, Tyler, what the heck is the red zone and why do you keep referring to it? Well, the red zone is simply just the seller zone, okay? And the red zone represents this area between $20.40 and $19.25 that has consistently rejected SoFi's price every time we've even gotten remotely close to it. As you can see, we fell through it here, got rejected by it here. We couldn't even get up to it right here. We couldn't get up to it right here. And now we're slowly getting rejected by it at the time of recording right here. And this is what represents a massive obstacle that is in the way for SoFi's price. And I've made it very, very clear to you all. You have a seller zone at the top. You have a buyer zone at the bottom. And what SoFi's price is going to do is bounce bottom to top, bottom to top, bottom to top, until eventually it breaks through one of these obstacles. It's either going to break through the seller zone or it's going to break through the buyer zone. And when that time comes, whatever direction it broke out of, it is probably going to run 10, 15, 20% in that direction. I would almost say nonstop. And so what that could imply is that as SoFi's price is now pumping up towards the red zone right now, you got to watch it very closely, folks. Because if SoFi is capable of breaking through this red zone, I see no reason as to why we can't see SoFi try to make some sort of rally all the way up towards $21.88 to $24.25. And there's a very real world in which it does it almost automatically, in which we see SoFi's price take a crazy push straight vertical to the upside, parabolic style, up to between $22 and $24, returning to that level for the very first time since February of last year. That's what could happen if SoFi's price is capable of coming up and breaking through this red box. And that's why it's so important that you watch it super closely. Because the people who don't realize that we're in this red box right now won't realize the significance of if the time comes that we break it. And they're definitely going to be behind the rest of the market who pays attention to this and sees that this sort of move can be on the way. Now, on the flip side, the thing you have to understand is that if SoFi fails to break this red box right now, just like we saw here, just like we saw here, and just like we saw here, it is going to put SoFi in position for some sort of larger capitulation to the downside. And it would not surprise me at all to see SoFi's price coming back down to $15.80 to $16.50. I think a move back down to this level would almost be very reasonable if it cannot get up towards and in and above this red zone. And so now you can see that what's at stake right now, right? I mean, we're talking about the potential for a move of upwards of 29, 30% upwards, or all the way back down another potential 10 to 15%. Nobody's safe right now, right? The volatility is coming. There is going to be a big move. We're going to see this swing hard in one direction. And the question is, which direction is that going to be? Now, obviously, I don't have the answer to that. I don't know what's going to happen here. And I don't even like to try to guess sometimes, because to me, there's no point in guessing and trying to pretend as if I can read the future. What I like to do is just prepare for both of these outcomes so that no matter what happens, whether it pumps or dumps, I'm prepared, I'm ready, and I'm in position to capitalize. So this is what my plan is. If we see SoFi continue upwards and it breaks through the red box, I'm actually not going to do anything. I personally am very happy with the amount of accumulation that I've done over the last few months. You all know my goal was to build this SoFi position into a $10,000 position. And if SoFi does break through the red zone, that is exactly what is going to happen. It will climb to over $10,000 positional value, and then I'll reestablish my thesis afterwards. So if we do see SoFi run here, I'm going to let those profits stack up and I'm going to enjoy those gains, okay? But if we do see SoFi start to roll over and come back down towards the green zone, just like it did back here, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to join the buyer zone cause and I'm going to do my buying anywhere below $16 for SoFi. Because although I am not 100% convinced that SoFi will bottom here and go into another bull market-esque rally, I do definitely think that there's a decent enough chance. And I do believe that this is a good accumulation zone. Because even if SoFi's price does roll through this zone, I think if it came back down to a lower level, like $11 to $12, I think it bottoms here for this bear market that it's been in and then starts trying to recover from there. So I have no problem accumulating in here, because in my brain, even if it falls one more time, I think it'll then rally off of that next low and go past my average cost anyway, right? So I look at this as a great opportunity to average cost, and it's worked well for me. Every single time that SoFi has come to this green zone, I've purchased, and every single time we've rode it up into profit, just like we have right now, as it's currently up nearly $1,000. And so if it comes back down to the green zone, I'm going to do exactly the same thing and do some purchasing right here. And so That's my plan and that's my strategy. You see, I'm not sitting here trying to pretend like I know what's going to happen. I can give you guys an educated guess, and I am going to do that in a second. But before I do all this guesswork, what I like to do is just set a plan in place for either thing. So if it pumps or if it dumps, I'm not caught off guard. I'm not emotional. I'm not worried. I know exactly what to do in that scenario, which in this case is simple. Nothing if it pumps. Ride the profit up into the green box up here. And if it dumps, start accumulating in this green box down here. That's my game plan. So I know, I usually would end it there, but some of you are going to say, Tyler, just give us a guess. What do you think is going to happen? And if I had to give you a guess of what I thought was going to happen, I do think that SoFi has a slightly higher chance of getting rejected back to the downside right now than it does of breaking through this zone. And the reason why I say that is because SoFi is currently experiencing a lot of weakness as it's approaching the red zone. One of the biggest indicators that I use to show that weakness is what you can see here, the Hill Conviction Index. This is a tool that I've used to basically oscillate a bunch of different tools to tell me if it's getting too high or not. And if you actually look at what SoFi is doing, every time that it tries to pump into this red box, it's getting very extended. It's going too high on this Hill Conviction Index. And that basically says that as it's going up, it's getting harder and harder and harder and harder for SoFi to get into this red box. Doesn't mean it can't do it, just mean it's going to be hard to do it. At the same time that we're seeing that, if you look at the 4-hour RSI, look at how currently we're seeing the price climbing and setting a higher high, but the RSI is still currently at a lower high. That means that as the price is climbing, it is still losing a bit of strength. Doesn't mean that it can't break through this red box. It just means it's going to be hard. And so because I know it's going to be hard and because I know it's going to be difficult, I would assume that you have a higher percentage chance of doing the easier thing. And so what I would actually do right now is give it a 60-40. I think we have a 60% chance of breaking back towards the downside. I think that's the more likely scenario, and only a 40% chance of breaking into this red box and moving up above it. Now, that's not terrible odds, but it's definitely a bit worse than a coin flip for those of you who want it to break above. But remember, that's me just guessing. That's an educated guess. I don't actually know what's going to happen, and I don't try to bet on this like I know what's going to happen. I simply just look at this and say, okay, no matter what happens, here's my plan. But here's my educated guess. And my educated guess is that it does start trying to pull back towards the downside. And so that's kind of the way that I see it, right? But that's why the moment is so important. This video isn't so much to tell you whether or not we're about to pump or whether we're about to dump. The video's purpose today is to tell you, listen, now that we're back at this red box, you need to be watching this extremely closely, because what happens here is literally going to lay the foundation for whether or not SoFi can pump 30% or drop 15% from here. And I don't want you all to be caught off guard when that move happens, because look at me, it's going to happen. You're going to get a big move based on what happens right here, and I want you to all be prepared for it. So the best thing that you can do right now to prepare for this is put a plan in place. If SoFi breaks the red zone, what are you going to do? Are you going to take profit? Are you going to open calls? Are you going to open puts? What's your game plan going to be? And then do the exact same thing for the bottom side. If SoFi's price, say, starts falling back to around $17, what are you going to do? So that no matter what happens, once the emotions start flaring as a big move hits, you know exactly what to do and how to capitalize on it in your portfolio. So mine, again, is simple. Nothing on the upside, accumulating on the downside, and keeping it simple just like that, with my goal of continuing to build this up towards a $10,000 position, of which we're getting pretty dang on close. So I'll keep you updated as it does play out. If this video does feel a little bit overwhelming and you don't understand really like what this red zone is and what this green zone is, I highly encourage you to go on my channel and go watch this video from 2 days ago. It says how to use buyer and seller zones as a stock investor. This video will explain to you exactly what is going on with this red zone and this green zone and how you can pay attention to it when it comes to SoFi. So make sure to go watch that video if you don't understand what we're talking about. If you do understand what we're talking about, put a plan in place right now, today, for what you're going to do depending on how SoFi responds to being in this red zone, because it's going to make all the difference in the world. I hope you guys did enjoy today's quick update. Can't wait to see you all on the next one. Peace out, everybody.